Overall, I expect there's going to be less. I mean, we're going to use one less execution-only broker because Whedon's becoming a piper.
Right.
And I expect there to continue to be attrition and consolidation across the business.
Yeah, so probably a little less.
Yeah, but again, it's not because the tricky part is it's not. I think that's going to be an industry reality. It's not something that we're actively doing.
It's not something you're actively managing. It's just natural, survival of the fittest. Larger versus smaller brokers?
I do think the larger brokers, and everything, all of these answers are incremental.
Right.
I wouldn't, again, I don't think much more, much less of anything, but if you think about our business being electronic, well, that's a technology spend that smaller brokers really can't compete on. And then capital commitment being a component of our business, again, smaller brokers aren't going to be a part of that. So I think it's safe to assume that larger brokers may be the beneficiary of that.
Yeah. And I assume the same as, traditional versus agency only, and capital as well, kind of more on both because the larger guys are winning and we're getting more of your flow.
Yeah, and again, I mean, the magnitude of that is hard for me to gauge, but incrementally, and directionally, that makes sense.
Yeah. On the MiFID II side, or on bundling side, at the end of 2019, do you see your commission wallet being much less, same, more, much more?
Well, again, it's a tricky question because the mechanism by which we're paying for things is different.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount that we'll use, it's sort of a loaded question here because it's the combination of what we're paying out of our pocket versus what we're paying through commissions. That the breakdown of that is different, but what that means for the overall number, I don't have as much visibility into.
Okay. Do you think the fees are going to be going, much less, same, more, so execution fees?
Well, because we're not attaching a research component to the same percentage of our trades, from a blended rate, they'll probably end up coming down. I mean, the other thing is, this is if we're talking about U.S. trading, as long as share prices continue to appreciate and stocks don't split,
your fees go down.
Prices come down too because we're paying in cents per share.
Right. There's been some talk about moving to or at least I've been getting some questions about folks thinking about trying to push this to basis points. Not that this is a formal question, but are people talking to you about basis points? Because I haven't heard a whole lot of discussion about it.
I think people throw it out there just because there is something sort of basically nonsensical about what we pay for a trade in Amazon versus what we pay in a trade. If you look at a board, you look at the most traded names,
like Syria or something.
Basis, like 5 of the top 10 end up being Brazilian ADRs in a given day, right? And so if you're trading Brazilian ADRs, all of a sudden you're paying tons of commission versus people who are doing Google and Amazon and moving massive notional to be doing so at fractions of a basis point.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
So there's something basically nonsensical there. Whether or not moving to basis points is even viable, I mean, the number of systems that we would probably have to change and do, I don't know. So I think as an intellectual exercise, people are throwing it out there because it sort of makes sense at some level, but in terms of anybody really practically trying to push that, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, that's kind of the same as me. So of the MiFID side, what's the most significant aspect of MiFID II that you would like to see come over to the U.S. market, and conversely, what don't you want to see come over here?
Well, look, I think that first of all, we're trying to be, bowing to as many matches as we do. I mean, we've taken a pretty global approach to MiFID II. So we didn't take the tack of ring fencing, our and challenging. I think, anything that becomes overly prescriptive in terms of how people have to trade would be something I'd want to avoid. I don't think MiFID II has done that specifically, but I think people are taking potentially a more narrow view of what best execution means.
Right.
Which I don't think is, would be helpful. I'd hate to see really narrow definitions of best execution
being mandated.
Be imposed.
Yeah. So when you look at...
Yeah.
So when you look at your broker lists, are the bulge bracket guys, do you see them winning, losing, kind of staying the same? And then we'll ask the same of the mid-tiers and the execution only, and then, the non-algo.
Yeah, I do see that the bulge bracket is, becomes a winner. I don't know that that's necessarily MiFID II.
No. We're kind of out of the MiFID II stuff, but I'm just looking. Yeah.
So look, I think that the issues are a couple. I think that the balance sheet is going to matter. I think that as businesses are having to rely less on agency working high touch orders, which were the merchandise that brokers were able to shop, and they're having to rely on sort of putting together that merchandise themselves within their own platforms, that benefits scale. And then I think the other thing is, as businesses are more technology reliant, it's just a heavy spending lift.
Right.
And staying, people talk about market data fees and building algo engines and connectivity and all of these various things. There's an expense involved in that that's tough at the same time as there's pressure on pricing.
So you basically see the bulge brackets kind of winning, the mid tiers kind of losing.
Except the one thing is, that you talk about the mid tier. This is where you can really overgeneralize. Because there are some firms that may have some advantages.
Right.
You have some execution-only shops who, and they don't necessarily even have to be execution-only shops. You could have some mid-tier brokers who could have access to unique liquidity that could make them really viable partners for percentages of our businesses.
Right.
And I say that because bulge bracket brokers aren't, at least at this point in time, trying to be expansive in the number of clients they cover.
Right.
And brokers who, may have models that allow them to cover clients who aren't getting that coverage from bulge bracket, they may be able to uncover liquidity that you're not finding in other places.
Right.
So that's one. The second one is, there's, as much as the technology is an expense, there are other headwinds as bulge bracket brokers in terms of ability to be nimble and innovative.
Right. They're definitely not as agile.
Regulatory